Did you read it?
I read it.
And?
And I haven't decided.
She had learned a long time ago how to leave before she was asked to. It wasn't cowardice. It was survival. And Naomi Carter had been surviving long enough to know the difference. But tonight felt different. She stood in the middle of her atelier, her name on the door, her grandmother's machine on the table, and read the contract in her hands for the third time. Paris, New York. A number on the first line that made the bill anxiety she'd carried for 7 years go completely silent. Her phone buzzed. She already knew who it was. She picked up.
Did you read it?
Min Jae's voice. Low. Controlled. The voice he used when he was feeling something he hadn't categorized yet.
I read it.
And?
And I haven't decided.
Another pause. Longer. The kind he used instead of saying the thing he actually meant.
Naomi.
Don't tell me what you think I should do. Not tonight.
I wasn't going to.
You were about to.
Then, and this was the part that stayed with her long after the call ended, his voice came back softer than she'd ever heard it. Stripped of the careful. Stripped of everything he usually kept between himself and the world.
I just need to know if you're going to disappear. Because I've spent a long time being the kind of man that people leave. And I need to know.
She closed her eyes and then opened her mouth as if she wants to talk but did not. Outside, the city moved the way cities do. Indifferent, ongoing, unbothered by the specific weight of two people on a phone call deciding something that couldn't be undecided. She opened her mouth, and that was when the second call came in. From a number she didn't recognize. From Paris. If you need to know what happens when a woman finally decides she is worth staying for, keep watching. At Felicity Romance Stories, we are just getting started. Chapter 1. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, which was already suspicious. Good news, in Naomi's experience, arrived without announcement. A school drawing taped to the fridge, a client's thank you text, the specific satisfaction of a finished seam lying perfectly flat. Bad news arrived in envelopes. Official ones, with return addresses and a certain weight in the hand. She left it on the work table for 2 hours before opening it. She was finishing a commission. A reception gown for a Busan client, ivory silk crepe with hand-finished edges, and she believed in completing what you started before you open the next thing. Her grandmother had been the same way, one seam at a time. The envelope will still be there. It was still there. She opened it at noon, standing at the cutting table with her reading glasses on, and read it twice before setting it down. Maison Leclerc, Paris. Established 1987. Mid-tier luxury to high-fashion trajectory over the past decade, currently in a significant expansion phase with satellite ateliers in 4 cities. They were opening a 5th in New York. They wanted a lead designer for the bridal and occasion division. 12-month initial contract, renewable. Salary, a number that made the light bill anxiety that had lived in Naomi's chest for 7 years go very quiet for the first time. And at the bottom of the second page, in clean legal language that she read 3 times, the selected designer will be expected to maintain primary residence and studio operations in New York for the duration of the contract. Intellectual property developed during the contract period will be held jointly by Maison Leclerc and the designer. She took off her reading glasses, sat down, picked up the envelope and looked at the return address again, as though it might have changed. It hadn't. She did not tell Min Jae that day. She told Lily, which was different. Lily was 7 and had recently developed strong opinions about New York based entirely on a picture book about a pigeon, and her response was, "Can we bring Gerald?" "Gerald goes everywhere," Naomi said. "Then I think you should do it," Lily said, returning to her homework with the decisive energy of someone who has resolved a major geopolitical question. Naomi looked at her daughter for a long moment. She had not said she was doing it. She had said nothing, in fact, beyond reading the letter aloud in the kind of careful, Neutral tone you use when you haven't decided yet what you feel. Lily had filled in the rest. She told the coordinator the next morning, not about the offer, just that she needed the workspace to herself for an hour. She spread the contract across the cutting table, opened her notebook, and made the list the way her grandmother had taught her. One column for what it gives you, one column for what it costs. What it gives: money, visibility, a global platform, the kind of professional credibility that doesn't come from going viral once, the kind that compounds. Security for Lily, room to grow. What it costs: Carter Atelier, which she had built with her own name on the door. Her apartment, 2 blocks from school. The bus route she knew by heart. The coordinator who had learned, without being asked, to put the task light on before Naomi arrived in the mornings. She stopped writing. She looked at the second column for a long time. She had not written his name. She was aware, in the specific way of someone carefully not doing something, that she had not written his name. She wrote it, Min Jae, then sat with the notebook open and the pen in her hand, and did not write anything else for a while. He appeared in the atelier doorway that afternoon. Not the hotel workspace, her atelier, which he had taken to visiting with the regularity of someone who had stopped pretending he needed a reason. He looked at the contract on the table before she could cover it. He was very still for a moment. Leclerc, he said. Yes. When did this arrive? Yesterday. He came in, stood at the table and read the first page without asking permission, which she allowed because she had been going to tell him anyway, and they both knew it. He read it the way he read everything, thoroughly, without expression. When he finished, he set it down and looked at her. New York, he said. Yes. 12 months minimum. Yes. He nodded once, slowly, in the way that meant he was processing rather than agreeing. It's a significant offer, he said. I know. The IP clause is standard for this tier, but worth negotiating. She looked at him. That's your response? She said. I'm looking at the contract. I know what you're doing, she said. You're being useful, so you don't have to be human about it. He went quiet. She came around the table and stood closer than she usually did when they were discussing work things. Close enough that the conversation couldn't hide behind the professionalism. Tell me what you actually think, she said. He looked at her for a long moment. His jaw was set in the way it got when he was holding something in. I think it's the right offer, he said at last. For where you are. For what you've built. I think Leclerc would be foolish not to want you, and I think you would be extraordinary there. And a pause. And I think if you take it, he said very carefully, you should take it because it's right for you. Not because of anything here. Not because of me. He paused again. And if you don't take it, same reason. She studied him. You're already letting me go, she said quietly. Not accusatory. Just reading it. I'm giving you room. There's a difference between room and distance, she said. You know that now. He looked at her, and for just a second, she saw it. The thing underneath the careful. The thing that had been there since a night in a workroom when he'd said, I don't know what to do with that. Don't decide yet, he said. I wasn't going to. Good. He picked up the contract and set it squarely in the center of the table, as if positioning it precisely could make it manageable. The IP clause, he said. I know a contracts attorney. She almost smiled. Of course you do, she said. Chapter 2. The memo circulated on a Thursday. Min Jae found out about it the way he found out about most insubordinations. Late, from the wrong person, after the damage had already been discussed in rooms he wasn't in. His CFO, Hyun Ki, 15 years with the company, loyal to the Kong name in the way that sometimes precluded loyalty to Min Jae specifically, stopped by his office Friday morning with the expression of someone delivering news they had rehearsed. The secondary board has raised a formal concern, Hyun Ki said, about the Carter Association. Min Jae set down his coffee. The Carter Association, he said. The language in the memo frames it as a brand management issue. The combination of the ongoing social media attention, the Leclerc offer becoming public. How is the Leclerc offer public? A pause. It's circulated. These things do. Min Jae looked at him steadily. From where? Hyun Ki did not answer, which was its own answer. Continue, Min Jae said. The concern is that the personal dimension of the relationship has become visible enough to create liability. There are investors who feel that a formal separation, removing the atelier's hotel affiliation, ending the professional contract, would be the cleanest resolution. He set a folder on the desk. There's a proposed severance structure. Very generous. It's not. Get out, Min-jae said.
Humki blinked.
Min-jae, take the folder. Get out of my office. He said it without raising his voice, which was worse. And tell whoever drafted that memo that I will be calling a full board session on Monday, and they should prepare to explain to me in person why they believe a severance package is an appropriate response to record bridal revenue. Hyun-ki left. Min-jae sat at his desk for a long time. He did not go to the atelier that day. He had not intended for the silence to start again. But there was something the board had done with that memo and its careful language, personal dimension, visible liability, that had reached something old in him, something his father had installed, and that he had believed, for the past several months, he had finally begun to dismantle. The fear was not that he would lose the business. He could absorb the board's displeasure. He had done it before. The fear was the other thing. The thing Park Sung-il had said on that early phone call, that his father had said first, that every relationship in his adult life had eventually confirmed in some small way. You make people feel alone. You don't do it on purpose, but you do it. He had been watching, with the particular vigilance of someone who distrusts himself, for signs that he was doing it to Naomi. And now the board had produced a document proposing to remove her from his professional world, and his first instinct, before the anger, underneath it, had been, maybe they're right. Maybe staying close to me is costing her more than she's showing. He knew it was distorted thinking. He also could not entirely talk himself out of it. He canceled his Friday afternoon appointments and drove to his mother's house instead. Park Soo-hyun opened the door, looked at her son's face, and said, "Come in. I'll make tea." She listened to the whole thing without interrupting. The memo, the severance structure, the Leclerc offer. The silence he could feel himself building again and couldn't seem to stop. When he finished, she poured the tea and said nothing for a moment. "You're doing it again," she said. "I know. You're deciding you're the danger. Someone has to consider." Min-jae. Her voice was gentle and absolute. "I wore that dress into a room of 200 people because a 26-year-old woman with a grandmother's machine and a tomato-shaped pincushion looked at me and saw me.
Saw me.
Do you understand what I'm saying?"
He looked at his tea.
"She does that," he said quietly. "I know she does. I've watched you for 32 years, and I have never once seen you sit on a stool in a corner of someone's room just to be near them." She set down her cup. "That's not a liability. That's the only good thing that has happened to you since you were 19. He didn't answer. "The board wants her gone because she makes you human," his mother said. A human Min-jae makes decisions with his whole self instead of just the part that protects the portfolio. That frightens them. He sat with that. "And the Leclerc offer?" he said. "What about it? If she takes it?" "Then you figured out." Soo-hyun refilled his cup. "You have 6 properties across 4 cities and a private jet, and you are sitting here talking yourself out of the one person who has ever told you the truth to your face." She gave him a look that was half maternal and half entirely done with him. "Go to the atelier. It's 7:30. She works late. You know that." His mother stood. "And Min-jae, don't go to manage it. Go to say what you mean." He drove back to the hotel. He did not go upstairs to his office.
He went to the atelier.
The light was on. He stood in the doorway, his spot, the worn position, and looked at Naomi at the cutting table with her reading glasses on, working on something in a deep green silk he hadn't seen before. Gerald on the shelf, his navy shirt on the door hook. She hadn't moved the shirt. He had noticed that quietly for 4 months. "You're here late," he said. She looked up, studied him the way she always did, reading the seam level, finding the thing underneath. "So are you," she said. He came in. He did not sit on the stool. He stood at the table, across from her, and said, "The board produced a memo recommending your contract be terminated." Her hands stilled on the fabric. "Severance and everything," he said. "Very clean." "And," she said, "and I told them to prepare to explain themselves on Monday." He paused. But I want you to know it exists. I'm not going to manage information around you. She looked at him for a moment. Is that why you went quiet? He looked at the green silk. I went quiet, he said slowly, because the memo said personal dimension and liability, and some part of me that I thought I had dealt with started wondering if they were right. Not about the business. He met her eyes. About whether staying close to me costs you something I'm not seeing. Naomi took off her reading glasses. Let me tell you something, she said. I have been left by people who said they loved me. I have been dismissed by people who thought they were protecting me. I know exactly what it feels like when someone decides what's best for me without asking. She set the glasses on the table. Don't do that. Chapter 3. He called the meeting for 9 a.m. Monday. He did not send an agenda. An absent agenda meant the chair controlled the room entirely. No one could prepare a counterposition because no one knew what position they were countering. His father had taught him that, and it was one of the few things from that education he had kept without revision. 7 board members. 3 secondary investors present by video. Hyun-ki at the far end with a folder, which Min-jae noticed he had brought again despite being told to take it. Min-jae sat at the head of the table and waited until everyone was settled. I've read the memo, he said. I'd like whoever authored it to walk me through the business case. Silence. Park Sung-il, who had been in this position before and was the most practiced at it, spoke first. It was a collective document. The concerns are shared. Then someone can share them with me now. More silence. Then Sung-il again measured. The situation has become public in ways that create narrative risk. The Leclerc offer circulating. People are talking about whether Kong Hotels is a stepping stone or a genuine home for this talent. There are questions about the nature of your personal. Stop, Min-jae said.
Seong-il stopped.
The bridal and occasion division, Min-jae said, has increased inquiry volume by 38% since October. 3 of the 4 major hospitality publications that covered this year's showcase specifically named our in-house atelier. We have 2 new corporate event contracts that cited the design capability as a differentiating factor in choosing us over competitors. He paused. Which part of that is the liability? The revenue isn't the question. It's the only question I'm answering in this room. He looked around the table. I'm not here to discuss the personal dimension of anything. I'm here because a group of people who benefit from this company's performance attempted to use my absence from a meeting to produce a document designed to remove a high-performing member of my team. And I want to be clear, directly, without a memo, that it will not happen. The room was very quiet. If anyone at this table has a genuine business concern, he continued, bring me numbers. Bring me a performance issue. Bring me something I can evaluate. Do not bring me social media posts and call it brand strategy. He let the silence sit for a moment. We're done with this item. He moved to the next agenda point, which he produced from his jacket pocket, typed, because he had written one after all. He simply hadn't distributed it in advance. Hyun-ki looked at the folder in his hands and quietly set it under the table. After the meeting, Sung-il found him in the corridor. You're making this harder than it needs to be, the older man said, not unkindly. You're making it harder than it was, Min-jae replied. She's going to take the Leclerc offer. You know that. Min-jae looked at him. You don't know what she's going to do. Min-jae, I've been in business a long time. When a woman like that gets an offer like that. A woman like what? His voice was quiet. Say it precisely. Sung-il had the grace to stop. She built something real, Min-jae said. From nothing, on her own terms, against every version of this conversation that has been had about her since she got here. What she decides to do next is hers to decide. He paused. Not yours. And not mine either. He walked back to his office. He sat at his desk and looked at the harbor, which was gray today, and thought about what his mother had said. A human Min-jae makes decisions with his whole self. He picked up his phone. He texted Naomi. The meeting is done. It won't happen again. She replied after a few minutes, I know. Then, after another pause, how did you sleep? He looked at the question. For hours, he typed. You? 5. Lily had a nightmare about a horse. Gerald's horse? Different horse. Apparently, there are several now. He set the phone down, and for the first time all morning felt something in his chest loosen. He had 4 more meetings before noon. He got through all of them faster than usual. He went to the atelier at 6. She was with a client, a woman in her 50s being measured for a gala commission, and he waited in the corridor without making himself known. He could hear the low conversation through the door, Naomi asking questions, the client answering, the particular warmth that entered Naomi's voice when she was genuinely interested in what someone was telling her. He stood there and listened, not because he was waiting for the client to leave, but because something about hearing her work, unhurried, certain, fully herself, was the thing that had gotten him through the past several days. He thought about the Leclerc contract, the New York clause, the 12 months that would become longer if she was successful, and she would be successful. He thought about what she'd said, "Don't decide for me." He was not going to decide for her, but he was going to have to figure out what he was willing to do. What staying in this, fully in it, the way she'd asked, looked like when the geography became complicated. The client left, passing him in the corridor with a polite nod.
He went in.
Naomi looked at him from the cutting table. "You stood in the corridor for 20 minutes, she said. 15. 20. I could hear you breathing." He sat on the stool. "I wanted to know what it sounded like. You working?" She looked at him for a moment. Something shifted in her face, softened slightly. The careful composure she kept as a professional habit giving way just at the edges. "The board won't try it again," he said. "I know. You told me. I want to tell you in person." He paused. "I want to keep telling you things in person. That's what I wanted you to know." She set down the chalk she'd been holding. "Then tell me something," she said. He looked at her. "I don't want you to take the Leclerc offer," he said. "Not because I think you shouldn't. Not because I think you can't handle it or it isn't right for you. Because I am—" He stopped, worked through it carefully. "Not ready to figure out what this becomes across that distance. And I don't want to manage this from a distance. I want to be here." He met her eyes. "That's what I think." She was quiet for a long moment. "That's the most direct thing you've ever said to me," she said. "I've been practicing." She almost laughed. "Not quite, but close." "I haven't decided yet," she said. "I know. You'll respect whatever I decide." "Yes." He paused. "But I wanted you to have all the information, including that." She looked at him for a long time. Then she picked up the chalk and went back to the pattern on the table. "Stay," she said. "I need someone to hold this end." He got up from the stool. He held the fabric. Chapter 4. She almost took it. There was a night, a Tuesday, late, Lily asleep, the apartment very quiet, when Naomi sat at the kitchen table with the Leclerc contract in front of her and a pen in her hand, and she was very close. The number on the page. The New York address. The line that said lead designer with her name beside it. Her grandmother's machine sat in the corner. She looked at it for a long time. Her grandmother had never left Accra, had never needed to. The work came to her, eventually, the way good work does when you refuse to compromise it. But she had also never had the offer. Had never had someone put a number on the first line of a formal contract and say, "We know what you are." Naomi touched the edge of the contract. There was a version of this decision that was very clean.
Take it.
Go to New York. Build something global. Come back in a year or 2, or whenever the work demanded it, and Min-jae would either have waited or he wouldn't, and either way she would have built something that couldn't be taken from her. That version of the decision was the one she had been making her whole life. Move before you're pushed. Build before you're robbed. Leave before you're left. She set down the pen. She thought about what he had said, standing in the atelier with his hands at his sides and his jaw set, and every visible sign of a man who had practiced being closed and was choosing not to be. "I don't want to manage this from a distance. I want to be here." She thought about Lily, who had said, "I think you should do it," because Lily was 7 and had not yet learned to read the things people didn't say. She thought about Carter Atelier, the sign above the door, the sign she had paid for herself. She thought about her grandmother. The work is the only thing that's completely yours. The work was hers already.
She had already built that.
The question was whether she was going to keep building it in the place she had chosen, the place with the school 2 blocks away, and the bus route she knew by heart, and a man who came and sat on a stool in the corner because being near her was the version of himself he preferred, or whether she was going to go somewhere new and build it again. She could build it again. She knew that about herself, but she was tired of starting over. She was tired of treating her own life like a draft. She picked up the pen. She did not sign. She wrote a response instead. She called the Leclerc contact the next morning. The contact, a composed French woman named Isabelle, listened to everything Naomi said and was quiet for a moment. "You're negotiating," Isabelle said. "I'm proposing an alternative structure," Naomi said. "Remote lead with quarterly residencies in New York. Retained IP on designs produced in my own atelier outside the commission scope. And the New York residency requirement removed from the base contract." A pause. "That's not the standard structure," Isabelle said. "I know what the standard structure is. I'm telling you what works for me." Another pause. Longer. "I'll take it to the partners," Isabelle said. "I can't promise." "I understand," Naomi said. "Take the time you need." She hung up. She sat at the cutting table in the atelier and pressed both palms flat on the surface and breathed. She did not know if Leclerc would accept. Probably they wouldn't. Companies like that didn't restructure contracts for people who didn't yet have names large enough to demand it. But she had asked. She had not made herself smaller to fit the offer. That, regardless of what Isabelle came back with, was already something. She told Min-jae that evening. He listened without interrupting. She had learned this was how he processed. The stillness was attention, not absence, and when she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "You negotiated," he said. "I proposed alternative terms. Knowing they might say no. Knowing they might say no." He looked at her. Something in his face that she was learning to read, the particular expression of a man recalibrating, updating, taking in new information about a person he thought he already understood. "Why?" he said. She looked at him steadily. "Because I'm done making myself convenient," she said. "For employers. For offers. For anyone." She paused. "I built something here. I'm not dismantling it to fit someone else's structure when I can try to build a structure that fits me." He was quiet for a moment. "And if they say no," he asked, "then they say no and I keep building what I have. And if they say yes?" She looked at him. "Then we figure out quarterly New York," she said.
Together.
"If you're still willing to be in this." He held her gaze. "I'm still willing," he said. She nodded once. He reached across the cutting table, slowly, deliberately, the way he did everything that mattered, and put his hand over hers. She turned her hand over. They sat like that in the quiet atelier, with Gerald on the shelf and the green silk on the table and the sign above the door that said Carter Atelier in clean block letters, and neither of them said anything else, because nothing else needed saying right now. Chapter 5. It was Lily who made it inevitable. For months, Min-jae had existed in Lily's world as a secondary character, referenced in conversation, occasionally audible on the phone, responsible for Gerald's needle case, which Lily knew about because Naomi had told her the story one evening and Lily had declared that anyone who knew the right needles was probably fine. The probably fine had been hanging there since November. On a Saturday in February, Naomi made the mistake of taking Lily to the atelier to pick up a forgotten commission piece. Not realizing Min-jae had let himself in, she'd given him a key 2 months ago for the days the coordinator was out, and was sitting at the work table eating takeout noodles and reading something on his laptop. He looked up. Lily looked up. A very specific silence occurred.
"You're the needle man," Lily said.
Min-jae looked at Naomi. "The good needles," Naomi said. "She knows." He looked back at Lily. "That's me." Lily came into the room with the complete absence of social caution that 7-year-olds are either born with or aren't, climbed onto the stool near the shelving, his stool, and looked at him with the particular forensic attention of a child conducting a character assessment. "Do you make the food deliveries?" she said. He paused. "Which ones?" "Mama said someone sends food to the overnight workers every week. She says it's anonymous." She said the word with careful precision, like she'd been practicing it. "But she knows who it is. I can tell because she smiles wrong." Min-jae looked at Naomi. Naomi was looking at a point above his head with great interest. I might send food sometimes, he said. That's a good thing to do, Lily said with the authority of someone issuing a verdict. Gerald likes you. I can tell. Gerald is a pincushion. Gerald has opinions, Lily said firmly. Min-jae looked at the tomato-shaped pincushion on the shelf, then at Naomi, who had given up on the point above his head and was now visibly suppressing something. Does he? Min-jae said. He likes people who are careful, Lily said. Because careless people drop the pins and then you step on them and it's very bad. She looked at him seriously. Are you careful? Min-jae thought about the board memo, about the 9 days of silence, about every time he had retreated to the managed version of himself when the real version got too close to something. I'm working on it, he said honestly. Lily considered this for a moment. Okay, she said, apparently satisfied. Can I have some of your noodles? They stayed 2 hours. Naomi retrieved her commission piece in approximately 4 minutes, and then Lily discovered that Min-jae's laptop had a drawing application, and that was the afternoon resolved. Min-jae sat at the work table while Lily constructed what she described as a portrait of Gerald's mother, a larger, more authoritative tomato with what appeared to be a crown, and Naomi worked on the commission at the cutting table, and the three of them occupied the same quiet space with a naturalness that caught Naomi off guard. She kept not looking at it directly, the way you don't look directly at something fragile you're afraid of disturbing. At one point, Lily announced that Gerald's mother was named Geraldine and asked Min-jae to write it on the drawing. He wrote it, in careful, precise letters. Lily examined it and said, Your handwriting is good.
Thank you, he said.
Mama's is terrible. I can't hear you, Naomi said from the cutting table. Lily leaned over to Min-jae with the conspiratorial energy of someone sharing classified information. She writes really fast because she's always thinking ahead of the pen, she said. That's what she told me when I asked. Min-jae looked over at Naomi. That sounds right, he said. Naomi did not look up from the fabric, but something in her shoulders changed. Later, when Lily had been collected by her weekend babysitter and the atelier was quiet again, Naomi stood at the cutting table finishing the commission, and Min-jae sat on the stool. He had reclaimed it gently from Lily's temporary occupation, and they were in the comfortable silence that had become their particular dialect. She assessed you, Naomi said. I noticed. She liked you. I got the verdict from Gerald. Naomi glanced over, something warm in her expression that she didn't try to compose. She doesn't do that with everyone, she said. She's polite with everyone. But the stool thing, sitting in your spot without asking, that's different. She's like you, he said. Naomi paused in her work. She reads people, he continued. And she doesn't perform the reading. She just does it and then tells you what she found.
He paused.
It's a specific kind of courage. Naomi looked at him for a long moment. She had to learn to be her own safe person young, Naomi said quietly, when it was just the two of us. She turned back to the seam.
I used to worry about that.
That I'd made her too self-sufficient too early. That she'd learn not to need anyone. And now, Naomi thought about her daughter's forensic stare and the verdict delivered through a pincushion and the way she'd climbed onto a stranger's stool without hesitation. Now I think she just learned to choose carefully, she said, which is different from not needing anyone. He was quiet. Is that what you did? He asked. She considered it honestly. I learned not to need anyone, she said. She's doing it better than I did. She looked at him. You're part of why, I think. She sees me choosing carefully. She's adjusting her model.
He took that in.
Said nothing for a moment. Does that feel right to you? He asked. Being someone's model. She thought of her grandmother. The genome. Gerald. It feels like the best version of what this is, she said. He nodded slowly. After a moment, he said, I'd like to take the two of you to dinner. Not a hotel event. Not a client thing. Just dinner. She looked at him. Lily will interrogate you, she said. I expect so. She'll ask why you don't smile more. I'll tell her I'm working on it. Naomi looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Saturday, she said. Somewhere with noodles. She has opinions about noodles. I'll find somewhere with noodles. And no white tablecloths. She can't be trusted near white tablecloths. Noted. She went back to the seam. He stayed on the stool. The atelier was warm and the task light was on, and Geraldine the Tomato Queen sat in her new drawing, taped to the corkboard by the window, presiding over everything with a tiny paper crown. Chapter 6. Leclerc said yes. Not entirely, not without conditions. They pushed back on 2 of her 3 terms and sent a revised contract that restored the New York residency requirement, but changed it from primary to preferred, which was a significant difference. The IP clause was restructured as she had asked. The quarterly arrangement stayed. Isabel called on a Thursday evening, businesslike and slightly warmer than their first conversation. The partners were resistant, Isabel said. But your portfolio from the showcase and the hotel commissions, and frankly the social reach around the Kong event, made the case.
You have a name now.
Names get terms. Naomi sat at her kitchen table with the phone against her ear and looked at her grandmother's machine in the corner. I need a week, she said. Of course, Isabel said. We'll be here. She hung up. She did not call Min-jae that night. She sat with it alone, the way she had learned to sit with big things, not avoiding them, just letting them settle before she brought anyone else into the room. There was a version of herself that would have called him immediately, put it into his hands, waited for his response before deciding what she felt. She was not that version anymore. She knew what she felt. She was going to take the time to be sure. She made tea, checked on Lily, sat at the table. The revised contract was good, genuinely good. Preferred New York presence not required. In practice, that meant 2 residencies per year, 10 days each, which was manageable. The IP structure was clean. The money was real. Carter Atelier could keep its sign, keep its clients, keep its small staff. The Leclerc work would run alongside it, not instead of it. She thought about her grandmother again. The work is the only thing that's completely yours. The work under this contract remained hers. She knew what she was going to do. She told Min-jae the next morning. He came to the atelier at 8, earlier than usual, with coffee, 2 cups, which had become a Friday habit without either of them marking the moment it started, and she told him as he set her cup on the table. She watched his face as she said the terms. The preferred residency, the IP structure, the timeline. He listened all the way through, set down his own cup. You're going to take it, he said. Yes. He nodded slowly. The processing stillness. 2 residencies a year, he said. 10 days each. Yes. The atelier stays open. Yes. He looked at the table for a moment. I have properties in New York, he said.
2.
I'm there 4, 5 times a year for board commitments. She looked at him. I know, she said. So. He met her eyes. This is manageable. I think so. You think so.
I know so, she said.
I just wanted to say it carefully. He almost smiled, the real one, the one that still appeared rarely enough that she noticed every time. You negotiated, he said again. They revised. Names get terms, she said, using Isabel's phrase. He looked at her with an expression she had been cataloging since a workroom in a hotel, learning its variations the way she learned fabric, by touch, by light, by what it did under tension. This one was new. It was pride. Uncomplicated, genuine pride, not in what she'd done for him or the hotel or anyone else's benefit. Just for her. Tell me what you need from me, he said. She considered it. I need you to keep being here, she said. Not perfectly. Not without the occasional retreat to the careful version. Just keeping choosing this. I can do that, he said. I know you can. She picked up her coffee. That's why I'm not worried. He sat on the stool. She pulled the next commission toward her. The morning light came through the north-facing windows the way it always did, and the machine waited in its corner, and Gerald sat in his place on the shelf, and it felt, she let herself feel it, fully, without composing it into something manageable like exactly what she had built. Hers. Chosen. Held. That evening, after the coordinator left and the atelier was quiet, Min-jae was still on his stool with his laptop. He had taken to doing end-of-day work there on Fridays rather than going back upstairs, and she had stopped pretending this was coincidental when she came around the table and stood in front of him. He looked up. She had been thinking about it since Thursday, since the phone call with Isabel. Since the specific moment she had understood, sitting at her kitchen table with her tea, that she was done building at the edges of her own life. She put her hands on either side of his face. He went very still.
Hi, she said.
Hi, he said, very carefully. She kissed him. Not urgently, not the desperate kind of first kiss that is about relief or release. Slow and deliberate, the way she did everything that mattered. His hands came up and found her waist, and he held her like something he was afraid of losing, and she pulled back just far enough to see his face. His expression was completely open. She had never seen him look like that. She thought she was probably the first person who had in a very long time. You're going to be fine, she said quietly. We're going to be fine. He looked at her for a moment.
I know, he said.
And for the first time, she believed he believed it. She stepped back, returned to the cutting table, pulled the commission toward her. He sat on his stool. He was smiling, the real one. He didn't say anything.
He didn't need to.
Chapter 7. The second wave of posts came in March. Not from Haun directly this time. She had, it appeared, read the room after the gala and gone quiet on the subject of Naomi Carter. But she had talked, in the way that people who lose a public battle talk, to other people in the same circles, and those people had talked to other people, and by March there was a low hum of commentary running through a certain tier of soul-adjacent social media. The housekeeper turned designer, the billionaire, who chose her anyway, the Leclerc deal that was now officially announced because Isabel had issued a press release and 3 fashion publications had picked it up. The commentary was not entirely hostile. That was what Naomi noticed, with quiet surprise. Some of it was the same as before, the reductive kind, the kind that reduced her to a narrative about luck or access or beauty. But a significant portion of it was something else. Women talking about the dress. The original photograph, Soo-yeon at the altar, shared again in new contexts, someone's bridal inspiration board, a thread about overlooked designers, a long post by a fashion journalist who had attended the showcase and written thoughtfully about what she'd seen there. Someone had found the community newsletter article, the same one Haun had weaponized, and reposted it differently. This is the woman who made the viral wedding gown. She was 6 months pregnant and alone when this was taken. Now she has a Leclerc contract and her own atelier. I think about her a lot. It had 100,000 notes by the time Naomi saw it. She sat with her phone for a long while. Haun appeared at the hotel on a Wednesday. Not to see Min-jae, Naomi learned later he hadn't known she was coming. She appeared at the atelier, which required asking the front desk, which required giving her name, which meant it was deliberate and not impulsive. The coordinator showed her in with a slightly uncertain expression. Haun's song was smaller in person than Naomi had constructed her from a social media profile and a photograph and a post that had appended 2 weeks of her life. Early 30s, well-dressed, with the particular composed expression of someone who has prepared what they're going to say. I won't take long, Haun said. Sit down, Naomi said.
Aeon sat.
She looked around the atelier, the commissions on the rack, the Geraldine drawing on the corkboard, Gerald on the shelf, and something in her expression shifted slightly, like she had come prepared for a different room. I came to apologize, she said. Naomi waited.
The post was, she paused.
I was angry at my husband, about the partnership falling through. I knew it was connected to you, and I wanted, she stopped. It doesn't matter what I wanted. It was cruel, and I used your life as a weapon, and I'm sorry. Naomi looked at her for a moment. Did your husband ask you to come? She asked.
No.
Did Min-jae?
No.
Haun met her eyes. I have a daughter. She's 4. I've been thinking about what I did since the gala, and I kept thinking, if someone did that to her, used her hardest time as a punchline to make a point that had nothing to do with her. She looked at her hands. I'm sorry. The room was quiet. Naomi thought about the 8 months, the hospital, Lily in her arms, the specific, exhausted clarity of a woman who has survived something and knows that what she does next is all that will matter. I accept the apology, she said. Haun looked up. I'm not going to tell you it didn't affect me, Naomi said. It did. But you came here yourself, with no leverage and nothing to gain, and you said what you said. That matters.
She paused.
Don't do it to someone else.
Aeon nodded.
She looked like she might say something more, but didn't. She stood to go. At the door, she paused. The dress at the gala, she said. Your design. On his mother. She looked at the floor for a moment. I've been in those rooms my whole life, and I've never seen a woman walk into one and look that completely like herself. She looked up. I wanted you to know that I noticed. She left. Naomi stood at the cutting table for a long moment after the door closed. She thought about Park Soo-hyun in the Duchesse satin. I feel like myself. Like it belongs to me. That was the work. That was always only ever the work. She told Min-jae about the visit that evening. He was quiet for a moment. Then, are you all right? Yes, she said honestly. I think I needed it. The apology. Not to feel validated. I already know what was done, and what it wasn't. Just to close it. She paused. She has a 4-year-old daughter. He understood what she wasn't saying. You gave her more than she deserved, he said. I gave her what was true, she said. She came with nothing. She apologized cleanly. That deserves a clean response. She looked at him. I'm not interested in carrying things that are done. He was quiet for a moment. I carry things too long, he said. It was said simply, without performance. A fact about himself. I know, she said. You're getting better at it. Slowly.
That's fine, she said.
I'm patient. She picked up the chalk. I have a commission to finish. He got up from the stool. I'll get dinner, he said. Nothing from the hotel kitchen. From the place on the corner.
Fine.
She looked up briefly. Get something Lily would like. She's coming by at 5 to see Gerald. He almost smiled. Does Gerald need anything? Gerald needs nothing, she said. He's a pincushion. He has everything. Min-jae shook his head slightly, a small, private thing, and went to get dinner. Naomi bent back over the chalk line. The work waited. She loved that about it. It always waited. Chapter 8. It happened on a Sunday. They had developed a Sunday rhythm the way people who are building something develop rhythms. Without announcement, without agreement, just by doing the same things in proximity often enough that the pattern becomes its own kind of promise. He came to the atelier in the morning. She worked. He worked from the corner table or the stool, or occasionally just sat with his coffee and read. Lily was usually elsewhere, at a friend's, at a weekend activity, and the hours had a particular quality. Unhurried, low-lit, quiet in the specific way of two people who had stopped performing ease and were actually experiencing it. On this Sunday, Naomi was working on a new commission, a design she developed for a Leclerc preview, her first submission under the new contract, and Min-jae was at the corner table with his laptop when she heard him close it. She glanced over. He was looking at the corkboard, at Geraldine's portrait, at the small school photo of Lily, the coordinator, had taped there months ago, at the fabric swatches and the rough sketches, and the Leclerc brief pinned neatly in the upper right corner. What? She said. Nothing. He paused. Just looking. She returned to the seam. 10 minutes later, he said, Lily asked me something. Naomi's hands slowed slightly. When? At dinner. Last Saturday. You were in the back looking for her jacket. She waited. She asked if I was going to be around for a long time, he said. Or if I was the kind of person who leaves. The room was very quiet. What did you tell her? Naomi asked. I told her I was the kind of person who was learning to stay. A pause. She thought about that for a while. Then she told me that Gerald had approved me as a permanent fixture. Naomi breathed out slowly. Something in her chest that had been very carefully maintained, contained, managed, kept at a functional temperature, did a thing she had not authorized it to do. She told you that, she said. Apparently Gerald's approval process is multi-stage. His voice was even, but she could hear the thing underneath it. I passed the final review. She set down her work. She turned to look at him. He was not looking at the corkboard anymore. He was looking at her, with the completely open expression she had only seen a handful of times, the expression that his face made when it stopped managing itself. I've been thinking, he said, about what it means to stay, what the actual shape of it is. Not in theory. He paused, choosing words with a carefulness she knew by now meant something real was underneath. I have been here, in this room, on that stool, More hours in the past 8 months than I have spent in any space that wasn't a boardroom or my apartment. And I don't want to stop. Another pause. And I want Lily to have a correct answer to her question. Not a careful one. Naomi looked at him. What's the correct answer? She said. That I'm not leaving, he said simply. That's the answer. She looked at him for a long moment. She thought about every version of this moment she had rehearsed without meaning to, every time she had caught herself imagining it and then firmly redirected because wanting something specific from someone specific was the kind of exposure she had learned to manage. She was done managing it. Okay, she said. He blinked. Okay. You're not leaving, she said. I'm not leaving. LeClaire, New York, whatever comes, we figure it out. Together. She turned back to the LeClaire design. That's what I've thought for a while. I was waiting for you to arrive at it. A pause. How long? He said. Since the stool, she said. You kept coming back to the stool. He was quiet for a moment. That's embarrassingly early, he said. It really is, she agreed. He made a sound she had never heard from him before. Low, surprised. She realized after a moment it was a laugh, a real one, not the polite professional version. Brief, genuine, a little undone. She kept working. She was smiling at the fabric. That evening, they walked to the restaurant on the corner, not for a commission reason, not for a client dinner, just because the atelier had been closing around 9 and neither of them had eaten properly. It was the restaurant where he'd ordered the return takeout, the first time, when she'd sent it back with a note about the overnight staff. They had been there twice since, once with Lily, once on a Thursday when the coordinator had gone home sick, and they'd found themselves hungry and unscheduled. The owner recognized them now. She seated them at the corner table without being asked. Min-jae looked at the menu even though he ordered the same thing every time. You always get the cold noodles, Naomi said. I like cold noodles. You have them at every Korean restaurant we've been to. Consistency is a virtue. It's a habit. Habits are how you know what someone values, he said without looking up from the menu. She looked at him across the table, his dark jacket, his reading posture, the small crease between his brows that appeared when he was concentrating on something. She thought about the first time she had sat across a table from him in his office, with him on one side and her on the other, and the entire length of the desk between them, the distance from there to here. Min-jae, she said. He looked up. Thank you, she said. He studied her. For what? For learning how to stay. She meant it plainly and entirely. It wasn't a small thing. He held her gaze. It was easier than I thought, he said. Once I stopped arguing with myself about it. He paused. The arguing was the hard part. She knew that about him. She had known it for a long time. You can stop arguing now, she said. I have, he said. The owner arrived with their drinks. He ordered the cold noodles. She didn't say anything about it. She just smiled. Chapter 9. The LeClaire preview was in April. Not in Paris. In their new New York space, which Isabel had described as intimate but which turned out to mean 50 guests, 2 publications, and a photographer whose last project had appeared in a magazine Naomi had looked at on a waiting room table 7 years ago, back when she was pregnant and uncertain, and the waiting room was for an appointment she'd had to reschedule twice because of work. She thought about that while she packed. Lily sat on the bed watching her fold things into the suitcase with the critical attention of someone who has opinions about packing order. The green dress goes on top, Lily said. The green dress wrinkles. It's the best one. It should be on top. That's not how suitcases work. It's how my suitcase works, Lily said, as though her pink rolling case with the unicorn patch was the relevant reference point. Naomi put the green dress on top. Min-jae drove her to the airport. He had offered the company car, which she had declined, and then offered to drive himself, which she had not declined. They sat in the departure lane with her carry-on in the back seat and the radio low, and the early morning making everything outside the windows gray and soft. You'll be back Thursday, he said. Thursday evening. I'll pick you up. You don't have to. I know. He did not elaborate. She looked at him. He was watching the traffic, profile clean against the window. She had learned his profile the way she had learned the faces of the people she cared for, specifically without meaning to until it was just there. I'm not nervous, she said. I know. I thought I would be, but I'm not. She turned the word over. It feels like the next thing. Not the thing instead of something else. Just the next thing. It is, he said. She nodded. He pulled up to the drop-off zone and stopped the car. Got out, took her carry-on from the back seat, set it beside her on the curb with the particular precision with which he did physical things. Deliberate, unhurried. She stood on the curb with her bag and looked at him. He looked back. Gerald is in the inside pocket, he said. I put him there last night. She stared at him. You put Gerald in my bag. You packed late. I was concerned you'd forget him. She opened the inside pocket of a carry-on. Gerald sat in his pocket, round and red and completely himself. She looked at the pincushion for a moment. Then she looked at Min Jae. You're ridiculous, she said. I thought he should be there, he said. First Leclerc event. He's been there for everything else. She stepped forward and kissed him on the curb in the departure zone with the early morning around them and the traffic doing what traffic does, and he held her the way he had learned to hold her, completely without managing it. She pulled back. Thursday, she said. Thursday, he said. She went inside. The preview was everything Isabel had promised and several things she hadn't. The space was clean and well-lit, the guests were attentive, and Naomi stood beside 3 of her submitted designs while a quiet, interested audience moved through the room, and she answered questions in the direct, unhurried way she answered all questions, and she did not perform either modesty or confidence because she was past both of those. A journalist from one of the publications stopped beside the centerpiece design, a column gown in deep amber silk, hand-finished, with the particular quality of something that had been thought about at the seam level rather than only the surface. Who taught you to work like this? The journalist asked. Naomi looked at the dress for a moment. My grandmother, she said. She said a sloppy seam is a lie the dress tells on you. The journalist wrote it down. Isabel appeared beside her afterward, composed and quietly pleased in the way of someone whose risk had paid off. The amber piece, she said. 3 people asked about acquisition in the first hour. Naomi nodded. It's not for sale, she said. I'm keeping that one. Isabel looked at her. For yourself? For a specific person, she said. When the time is right. She had been thinking about it since she finished it. The amber gown was not a commission. It was hers, the first purely personal work she had made since her grandmother died. She had not told anyone what she intended to do with it.
She was going to.
Just not yet. She was back Thursday evening as promised. Min Jae was at the arrivals area, not the curb, inside, in the specific waiting position of someone who had arrived early. She saw him before he saw her. Still, hands in his pockets, looking at the arrivals board with the focused attention he brought to everything. She stopped for a second and just looked at him. The distance from the hotel corridor, the cleaning cart, the gray uniform, the cracked left sole, to here. Standing in an airport arrivals hall being met by a man who had put her pincushion in her carry-on so she wouldn't go without it. She thought about her grandmother. The work is the only thing that's completely yours. She walked toward him. He turned and saw her, and something in his face did the open thing, the thing she had catalogued enough times now to trust completely. How was it, he said.
Good, she said.
Really good. She stopped in front of him. Gerald was helpful. He usually is. She handed over the carry-on. He took it without ceremony, fell into step beside her toward the exit. The arrivals hall moved around them. The amber gown, she said as they walked. I need to tell you something about it. He looked at her. Go on. I made it for your mother, she said. For whatever the next occasion is. The next thing she wants to walk into looking like herself.
She paused.
I was going to make it a commission, but I want to give it to her. He was quiet for a moment. She'll argue with you about payment, he said. I know. Tell her it's not negotiable. She won't listen. Then tell her Gerald approved it, Naomi said. She'll understand. He looked at her with the expression she had stopped trying to catalog because it had become simply, finally, his face. She'll love it, he said. I know, she said. They walked out into the evening together, the city loud and moving around them, his hand finding hers without announcement, her carry-on between them with Gerald in the inside pocket, the sign above the Atelier 2 Cities over that said Carter Atelier in clean block letters that would still be there tomorrow, and the day after, and every day she chose to build toward it. Hers. Held. Still here. Carter Atelier turned 1-year-old on a Thursday. Naomi did not plan a celebration. She was not a woman who planned celebrations for herself. But Lily decorated the work table with paper flowers before school, and the coordinator arrived with a cake, and Gerald wore a tiny ribbon that Lily had tied around him the night before, and Minjae arrived at noon with cold noodles from the corner restaurant because that was, apparently, his love language, and she had accepted this. He set the noodles on the table, looked around the room, the commissions on the rack, Geraldine still on the corkboard, the Leclerc brief beside the new sketches, the amber gown's hanger in the corner, waiting for the right moment. He looked at her.
1 year, he said. 1 year, she said.
He didn't make a speech. He sat on the stool, the way he always did, and ate his noodles, and Lily called from school to sing something that was almost happy birthday and not quite, and the machine waited in its corner, faithful as ever. Everything she had built, everything she had stayed for. It looked exactly like this. And that is the final chapter of Naomi and Minjae's story, and what a journey it has been from that hotel corridor to everything she built with her own 2 hands. Now I need to hear from you. Drop in the comments and tell me where you're watching from: London, Toronto, Nairobi, Atlanta, wherever you are in the world. Say your city and let me know you were here for this one. And tell me, what part of the story stayed with you the most? Was it Naomi negotiating her own contract terms instead of shrinking to fit the offer? The moment Minjae put Gerald in her suitcase? Or the quiet Sunday in the atelier when he finally said, "I'm not leaving," and meant every word of it? Leave it in the comments. I read every single one, and your love for these characters is what keeps this channel going. This is Felicity Romance Stories, and I will see you in the next story.